to visit the people, and I'm here to document their, I'd like to stop and just see what's going on in this church. So I did. I pulled into the parking lot, and I went into the outside foyer door. And then there was a hallway, but I'd never been to that church, and I didn't exactly know what door you're supposed to go in. So the first door that I tried was locked, but it had a little slit window in it, and I could see the congregation in there. So I went around to another door, and it was locked. And I went around to another door, and it was locked. So I said, that's okay, I got places to go, it's all right, I'll just go down the road to some other thing to visit while I'm here. So while I was going back to leave the main outside door, one of the people from the congregation got up and opened a door for me. He said, would you like to come in? I said, yeah, sure. And so they let me come in. I was the only person in that entire building that looked anything like what I look like. Those people were so welcoming to me. They continued with their sermon, they continued their hymns, they continued all the usual program. But at the end, the minister said to the congregation with her microphone, the minister, the lady, said that today, she says to the congregation, she says, we have a visitor today, but we don't know who he is or where he's from. But we would like him to introduce himself to us. And so she came over, she gave to one of her deacons the microphone to bring to me. And so I took the microphone. Actually, I went up on the couple of steps and spoke to the congregation. And I told them that I had never been to Louisiana, that I'm visiting. I live in New England, near New York. I live way far away. I've never been here. I came here to visit you and your ways, your oil, your rice, your crawfish, your jambalaya, your songs, your congregation, like that. And I said that, I have been to your capital. I have been to Shreveport, and I told them places that they would relate to. I've been to Shreveport, I've been to New Orleans, I've been to your rice field, I've been to all these places, and I said, but the best part that I am taking home to where I live, hundreds of miles away from here, the best part that I'm taking home, the best part of this whole trip was not the rice fields, it wasn't the oil, it wasn't the restaurants, it wasn't the diet, it was you people. It was you who have welcomed me, a visitor, into your communities. It is you, your hospitality, that over this past, I've been here for 3 weeks now, or I'm been here for a month, but, I don't know, today's the 19th day. I've been to everywhere, and everywhere I have been welcomed by you. Everywhere. You have been the best of my whole trip. I have all these other things to tell, but I have this to tell. I've been to Red Pole, and I've been to New Orleans, and the hospitality, generosity, and the friendliness.
Is there anything?
I will.
You gotta get on this.
I'm all done. I'm almost done. And I felt the same exact thing this morning, today, when I was at the coffee table over there making my coffee. And of all the people who welcomed me here, it was one. It was Cindy, who came and introduced herself to me. Again, right there. Thank you very much for what you do for our country.
Well, you must be a writer. I enjoyed that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Some other questions. Now, let me go ahead.
It's not a question, but it's a kind of thank you. You talked about not being able to find work. And I've experienced the same thing for longer than I would have expected to experience. And while clearly I don't have the issues that you've encountered because of your color, I'm large. And I get that look in people's eyes when I show up, and they realize, oh, she's not like me. We're not going to want her. And I just could really relate to what you were saying about it. It's a very strong feeling. It's a very hard fight from moved past it. And I admire you.
Thank you for sharing that. It's very personal. Thank you for that.
So Cindy, I wanted to ask you, when you're talking, when your kid boys growing up, there's a lot of the violence that you touched on today. Kids who die, going back to films a lot.
Social act.
Very different than what most of us grow up with, growing up in the cities. And yet, at the time that you were growing up, it sounded like a lot of that was African Americans. You weren't seeing a lot of white folks in the project itself. And the show family you mentioned was one family who was there for a while. To what extent, and growing up also, these folks, hopefully, you read the book and say, the sense you get when you're telling these stories is not anger or bitterness, but really sort of reporting with a very observant eyes to what's going on. At what point in their growing up was the black-white thing? I'm sorry, at what point growing up was the black-white thing apparent to you? Was it when you went up to high school, or when you went to Buckley, or to Catholic school, or did it happen earlier?
I'll tell you what. Thank you for very good questions today and comments. I really appreciate everybody's input and contribution. I think there were always sort of these encounters where we were reminded that we were not good enough. And when there's a part of the book when I was in kindergarten, and a lady, she's a substitute teacher, she wasn't our usual teacher. She came in and she brought her granddaughter into a side door. And I remember her making us look at her granddaughter. Her granddaughter had this beautiful raincoat on and she had beautiful hair. We all wanted hair like that. And the granddaughter was our age, just a really pretty girl. And the grandmother, she drilled us for, I don't know how long it was a long time ago, but she made sure we understood we would never be like her granddaughter, never. And she told us why. And so, that image, not only that experience, we still get that. All through school, the irony is, a lot of people didn't realize until they grew up, and now they realize it's time for me to go out into the world. How do I get there? Where is the door? Where is the bridge? Nobody really talked to us about education. The teachers, a lot of them were sexually molested, many of us. The racism came in the level of how they withdrew knowledge from us. And even my pastor, who went to Arsenal School in Hartford, and he talked about how he said, I want to be the president when I grow up. And he said, no, you're going to be a janitor. Be a good janitor. And it bothered him. And so we all have these different horror stories. So it's something that happens immediately. Children of color. And the tragic part about it, and is when you look at other cultures, they seem to have a cohesiveness that a friend had mentioned to me. We were talking about the richness of Jewish culture. And my friend was saying how I've never seen a Jewish person in the ghetto. I've never seen them in the hood. I've never seen them really poor. And I said, that's really something to look at. They must be doing something right. Part of what really, so for me, a big part of that is, I always knew early on that the Jews were God's people. And I knew that from my mother. She grew up in Hartford. She had some Jewish friends in the north end of Hartford. Her name was Judith, which means a Jewess. And so, the people that we dealt with were Jewish people. They were the ones who didn't hate us and were not afraid of us. And so there's something about the humanity that God has the favor and the wisdom and the humility that God has given you as a race that we desperately need. And then, Andy, we talked about the civil rights movement and what happened. There was such a closeness because the Jews basically were the backbone, the financial backbone of the civil rights movement, and they were right out front. But what happened was the Black Power movement came in, and Black people wanted to be radical. Black people are in such a place of post-traumatic stress that we don't even know how to love ourselves. So this is a plea for you today that those of you who are thinking about reaching out, don't feel bad if it's not reciprocated, and if Black people don't seem to understand what you're trying to do, the sacrifice. Don't give up on us. We don't even understand ourselves half the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cindy, a lot of what you've talked about today is making me somewhat uncomfortable. And
Sorry, I'm feeling that.
and in a good way. But this last year, and I'd say some of this stuff just can't be happening. And then in this last year, the hatred and the racism and the misogyny that has been spewing out through this political process really has educated me, and I think a lot of us, that people are just, millions are coming out of the woodwork. And so I try not to be terribly, frightened of all of this, but I find out what's happening. But I would ask you, the fact that this come out, regardless of what happened with the election, how do we take this information that these things are not only happening, but now they're more overt than they ever have, to me, than
Yes,
they
they
ever
are.
have. How do you go forward? How do you take a lesson from this and shove them back in the woodwork, or?
Very good question. I mentioned earlier about love, and it sounds kind of oversimplified, but love is actually a very sophisticated tool. The thing that I discovered is that when people come into the country and they're immigrants, the way that they're indoctrinated and the proof that they're Americans, they act like apple pie, baseball, and you have to hate Black people. That's how you bona fide yourself. I know that's not the word, it's for yourself. As an American, it's part of the culture. So what I've learned to do again is I just neutralize. I just love people through it. And if you love people long enough, and we have different ranges of love. Some people seem like they're impossible to love, but I never give up. Typically, the person who's the most racist or the hardest to deal with are those people that need love the most. And guess what? Love is redemptive. It always changes.
I just want to say that battery in our microphone is dying.
Oh.
Get you to use my hand, huh?
Okay. Thank you.
About 10 seconds. Not good for a while.
Yeah. So love is a great power. And then if you read the book, you'll read about when I was at the community center dealing with a lot of things. But I just said, I'm going to just love. And I closed my eyes to things that should have shut me down, even when I knew people were trying to get rid of me. I knew that the kids would not get what they needed if I allowed hate to stop me. We have to be creative with that. We have to be more emotionally sensitive, emotionally sophisticated. Love can tackle anything you throw at it. Really can.
Would you care to tell the story about the dresses, about winning the recognition award in school and being taken downtown?
Oh, yeah. Yep. And is there a woman here whose husband worked for St. John's? Oh my my gosh, please don't leave, I want to see if you have a blueberry muffin recipe. So my mom, again, my mother, who had a really horrific childhood, I didn't put that in the book because I thought that would be unfair to her. I could take it, but I wouldn't put her through that. So she was a day worker, so she would work in people's homes, and she always worked for Jewish people, and then she had a Jewish man that he was her personal, she took care of him as a CNA. And so, again, she was just fascinated with the way Jewish people raise their kids. And that was her motto. So she noticed everything from the type of furniture to the kinds of clothes. And she would take her little check and she would go to West Hartford Center and she would buy the same clothes, even though we had to eat beans for the next 2 weeks. She wanted us to feel what it felt like to have quality things, quality toys. She studied Jewish mothers. And so we were used to nice things in the project. And one day, my older sister, a teacher from school wanted to take her and a neighbor, one of her best friends, who was white, wanted to take them out on a luncheon. My mother kind of didn't feel that good about it. But my sister was such a good kid. Mom, this is going to be great. She was so excited. I remember her in the house that morning getting ready, and the teacher came and picked her up in the car, and my mother with this just sense of foreboding, the whole thing, quiet foreboding. When my sister came back, the bounce was out of her step, and she went up in her room, kind of shut the door, didn't really want to talk. And my mom wanted to know what happened, and I thank God for mothers that care, who will open the door and say, something's wrong with my child. And she came in there, my sister didn't really talk about it. She got it out of her and discovered that this teacher had taken my sister to the basement of Sage Islands, and they had things in the basement, and they also had things on the higher floors. The basement had a lot of the clearance type of items back then. She didn't think my sister would know the difference, but we knew. Much of what happened to us, even though we couldn't articulate it as children, we knew it was wrong. We knew when we were being discriminated against. And my mother could not believe that she took the white girl up on the floor where we typically are, and the teacher had some excuse for why she did that. And it's that kind of thing that when you're not fair, when that's in you, it comes out in ways you never know when that hatred's gonna resurface. So of course my mother called the school, she called the principal, she cussed the teacher out. She cussed the teacher.
Aaron, the reason I wanted to raise that is in addition to love, which is a great thing for each of us to do, clearly there are some institutional things that go on here, and we have to always be observant and ready to react to them. Because, can you imagine when kids are being told by people of authority that their parents have entrusted them to, that there's a way that it's wrong, but that's the way it should be. That's got to be an overwhelming, powerful influence. And those are the kinds of things we have to try to make sure we do things. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a short story, but it's really leading to the question that I want to ask you. When I was in grammar school, I had black friends in class. We were good friends. We got along very well. By the time we got to high school, we were tracked. There were those of us who were expected to go to college, and others who learned typing or other things. So these people from my class, I sort of lost touch with. At our 50th high school reunion, I went back, and at the end of the reunion, the thing that made the biggest impression on me was that one of these young men, boys at the time, lived in a pal, asked me to dance. And we danced, and we had a great time, and I realized that back then in high school, he never would have asked me to dance. It just didn't happen. And I began to think of the changes. And I think the very fact that we elected a black president, and there are many appointments of qualified black people in high positions, I think you have to say that we've come a long way, but obviously you say we need to go farther. And your answer to Miriam's question was to be loving, to be accepting, but here's the question. As a writer,
Yes.
what you write is powerful. People are reading and people are thinking, and hopefully out of what you write comes something else. So aside from that we should love more people and be more accepting, what's your message to society? Where do we have to go now?
Very good question. In December, I had a short stint, couple of months. I was working in a school, and I had to quit the job because, so I was working in this school. I was a site coordinator. I loved it. It was 200 kids and like 11 teachers. The kids were all African American mostly, and there were a few white kids, but mostly African Americans and Latinos. The kids were just, their behavior was horrific. And they hired me as a site coordinator for the after-school program to bring programs in. And they supplied me with the curriculum. It was my job to manage the teachers and the students. Well, I'm in this school, and it was in the suburbs. But I don't want to tell you what school system it was. I was noticing that there were so many black boys being sent to Mr. Bill's office. Mr. Bill was supposed to be the disciplinarian. And they were tossing kids out like popcorn. And it was disturbing enough to me, and I wanted to know because I was a site coordinator. That was my job. They didn't think it was. When I walked into the school with all white staff who were very hostile to me, they didn't want to help me. They wouldn't talk to me. The principal was terrible to me. But I walked in there professional, and I wanted to know how everybody's day was, but what was going on with these kids. The kids were treated like animals, and basically they were acting that way. So I challenged those kids. They were boys. Come with me. Brought them in my office. Why are you getting tossed out? You know, I held them to a standard of accountability. I don't want to hear, did your mother sing? I felt the project coming out of me. Did your mother send you to school? Does she know you're acting this way? And just the investment of dealing with people that care and held them to a standard. Said, that's not acceptable, I'm sorry. You're not going to do this in this program. The whole vibe of the program began to change. But that became very threatening to the administration, and which is so ironic. The most threatening person was the principal of the school and Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill didn't like the fact that when I sent the kids back, they behaved. So there was a young African American who I worry about all the time. I'm always afraid I'm going to pick up the paper and hear that he'd been shot or something. Young guy, 27, good with kids. He had a way about him. He had maybe a couple of months of college, but very passionate. And this young man was so good with the boys that I began to funnel the kids who would act up to him. And when I would walk past the other teachers, I'd walk past, and some teachers I had to hang around the door because they couldn't manage the kids. But every time I walked past his door, the kids were spellbound. Why? Because there was somebody they could relate to who really saw them. And now there is and you can't always blame the culture because sometimes people are not training and disciplining their kids. But my answer, I'm I'm sorry, Ellis. But my point is that this young man, I saw something in him and began to kind of try to bring him, to take him on a hike, to elevate his mind to another level, going back to school. He was gifted with the kids. One day he was walking down the hallway and the CEO of this after-school program was from out of town, just happened to walk through the door, and here was Tyrone walking down the hallway. And the first thing he said was, "Who is that? What is he doing?" And that offended me. And so what I ended up having to leave the program because then they wanted me to do it and would no longer give me supplies. So I said, "You're not messing up my good name, I'm out of here." But the point is that I think that we have to demand accountability. Sometimes if we look at it on a larger scale, it won't happen, but the day-to-day interactions with people count. People remember that somebody cared and somebody chose to invade their darkness. I want to stop with you. Answers.
Yeah.
Let me just ask one last question. Last question. You've raised your kids in Windsor, which is, it's a mixed community in terms of Caucasian, non-Caucasian. It's a big difference in terms of that, in terms of what their perceptions are of some of these things.
Great questions, Andy. Yeah, my kids, when I talked to them about some of the experiences, it was like I was talking about Fantasy Island. They couldn't believe some of the things that happened to me. My husband and I, we moved to Windsor. It probably was the worst property, the oldest house in the whole city, but it was in Windsor. And the school system was better. And so because we moved there, our daughters, they all went to college, all of them. They all did very well. And the way that they relate to white people was different. We were afraid. We didn't know, there was just this strangeness, and we were always kind of cowering. But my daughters, it's a completely different experience. And them knowing who they are, knowing their place in society. And I think society has changed. I think the kids don't have the hang-ups that they put on us when we were coming up. You guys agree?
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else, any other burning questions, we'll break so that Cindy can sign the book. I hope you all get the book and read it. It's really fascinating. Before we stop though, Cindy, I do want to give you, as a token of our appreciation, one of the synagogue's keepers, which has the design that Solomon created, that's on the sanctuary, in the sanctuary, and we hope you will wear it with pride. And so, thank you very much, and go sell some books.
No, I own this coffee shop, legs like that, get out. Old fashioned, she has nothing to lose. Got to hear that story, only because
Go back. Jewish
So